All right, good people. Isaac Cooper here, CEO of IMC Financial Consulting, host of the Planning Podcast. Shout out to everyone that joined us yesterday. We are back for another IMC recap. So please send us any updates or information that you want us to cover. We got a few topics today, so probably be a little bit shorter than yesterday, but super excited about jumping in. So hopefully it's been a good day for you. And we'll go ahead and start with what is most important. So if you've been keeping up with the news, there has been a little bit more conversation around this eviction moratorium and really some of the development since the CDC put in place that, hey, all right, knowing that the spread of the virus could increase if those that have not been able to pay rent or mortgage due to the overall impact of the pandemic, that could increase the spread of the virus. Now, we all know the pandemic has had a impact depending upon the industry you're in. There are some folks that I know that's just been like, hey, I just got to adjust to working at home. There's some folks that we know that have been drastically impacted because they've reduced the amount of hours that they would typically have on a week-to-week basis, or they no longer are employed with that particular job. And so each situation is different. This is not one of those to where it's just folks just sitting on their hands, not looking to take care of their situation. There are real lives and households that are truly trying to stay above the water due to the fact of their current employment or previous employment changed their situation. So the eviction moratorium was really a federal mandate that would help reduce the spread of the virus. Over time, different organizations were able to provide rent assistance and or utility assistance, but I'm going to speak specifically towards the rent assistance. The federal government ended up allocating about $46 billion towards a rent assistance for the eviction moratorium. Since about mid-July, only out of the all the states throughout the country, 26 states have allocated less than 10% of the money that should have been allocated. So you got 26 states that has received money for rental assistance, and they have allocated less than 10% of what they should have. So that's an issue. That's a big deal. Due to the fact that, prior to the moratorium expiring, they were essentially saying that, hey, we are no longer going to keep this up because you've had enough time. But ultimately, when you look at the responsibility that each individual state had, due to whatever problem they have within the process, it could be archaic in regards of the paperwork necessary. They may not have an online process to be able to upload applications, or it could be just the lack of simplicity of the application that makes it difficult for the renter or the landlord to be able to recoup on any of their costs incurred from not essentially charging for rent. So with that being said, I wanted to quickly cover what has been recently announced within the last couple of days. So they did provide a 60-day extension, but there's a ton of ambiguity around it. So as you can see here, and I'm going to share my screen here in a second. So as you can see here, landlords are upset, as they should be, right? And so you have individuals that ultimately the way in which they take care of their lifestyle and their family and their loved ones is based off of individuals being able to pay rent on a consistent basis. It's actually a retirement strategy as well. There's a number of folks that are in retirement in which their cash flow comes from the units that they rent out, if it's commercial property or if it's rental property. And so the pandemic comes all of a sudden, and 80% of what they utilize on a month-to-month basis is tied to money that essentially their renters legally do not have to pay. So are individuals taking advantage of the eviction moratorium? Of course. Anything you can use, you can abuse. There's people out here abusing hammers and, tools in which you can utilize to build a house. So that is just a nature of, human behavior. But ultimately, the long-term impact of this moratorium really is going to destroy certain livelihoods and communities if not handled correctly. And so, as you can see here, some of the frustration. I am actually here in the state of Alabama, and as you can see, some of the frustration has been led by the Association of Realtors from Alabama and Georgia, just on that emergency motion that argues that the Centers for Disease Control in a prevention order that they put in place Tuesday, they essentially that really exceeds the CDC's power. Like you stepping out of bounds is pretty much what they're saying. And I can empathize with their frustration. I think the onus is on the individual states, Alabama, Georgia, all throughout the country, to really rectify the timeliness and the effectiveness and the efficiency necessary to be able to get these dollars into these renters or landlords' hands, more specifically. And so this really eviction moratorium is a bit commingled, unfortunately, and I can see how it's been politicized a bit. If you've been following our company and what we've been doing in regards to solutions, you know that we launched our Financial Navigator program in partnership with the city as a COVID-19 response. So close to 200 residents we've been able to assist and send them to where the resources are when it pertains to rental assistance and utility assistance. And on average, each call is roughly around, we'll just say 25 minutes. So we hear the pain and the frustration of the community. We know that there are individuals that may say, hey, I have 3 dependents. I actually caught COVID. I was hospitalized for a certain amount of time. I didn't have the ability to be able to retain my job due to that contraction. And now I am 3 months behind, 4 months behind. Imagine someone that has rent that may be $700 a month, $800 a month. And the next thing they know, they owe $10,000, right? Like what type of money event will trigger that type of resources that they'll be able to essentially cut a check and then be able to pay rent moving forward? So there is just, unfortunately, it hasn't been taken into consideration the long-term impact of this moratorium, really for as well the landlord and the renters, but as well when it comes to impacting the overall community. And so hopefully, truly, hopefully, I hope the government in some form of fashion starts to implement a more of a robust way to address this and start speeding up the time frame that landlords will be able to receive their assistance. Keep in mind, if you are here in the state of Alabama, please reach out to Legal Services Alabama. So if you are watching this and you say, hey, I feel like I am in that space to where I may need to speak to someone, make sure you reach out to Legal Services Alabama. Be a really, really good resource. And so I did want to start with that. I know that's probably not the most exciting news to talk about. I'll be honest, it's probably more frustrating than anything, knowing that I'm driving through communities, seeing, you see furniture and beds and outside because one, they don't know their rights when it pertains to an eviction, and then two, they feel like they have no coverage and they have no other option, and so they are going to go ahead and transition out without being forced out. And so if you know anyone that could be in this situation, and to be honest, 9 times out of 10, they may not even share it with their neighbors. They may be quietly suffering and struggling. And so it's a real situation. It is really hit every tax bracket. I can tell you there are individuals that were gainfully employed, and then just at a drop of a dime, things changed. And so the eviction moratorium, I'm glad it's been extended with some conditions. I don't think it's going to hold a lot of legal weight, just as what we can see in the different counties that don't necessarily respect it. Prime example, as you can see here, Franklin County, they pretty much said we will not follow CDC's recent eviction moratorium. And so looks like on a county by county basis, city by city basis, probably at the county level, they have the authority to override that or to not acknowledge it. And so moving forward, I know we'll be pulling on our friends at Legal Services Alabama to give some clarity on this. But just as you can see, there is just a number of ambiguity around here. And so if you have any questions, again, please reach out to the Legal Services Alabama to help you and your family with this situation. All right, let's now cover our next topic. And again, that's typically not the most fun conversation to have, but with the work that we do, our goal and intention is to make sure that we are a voice for the voiceless. We're able to step into a situation and be an ambassador for someone in some form of fashion. It is easy to talk about what to do when it pertains to your money when you have money, and we do help our clients with that. But at the same time, it's important to be able to speak to someone that may not have the resources and guide them in the right direction. Target. So let me back up. Some folks may say Target, but there has been this evolvement of companies, creating different incentives to attract workers. So as you can see here, Target is to pay 100% of college tuition and textbooks in a bid to attract workers. Now, a few other folks have started this program, as you can see here: Walmart, Chipotle, Starbucks, with just similar debt-free education programs. Just a quick recap. Ultimately, starting this fall, this big box retailer said it will cover the cost of tuition, fees, and textbooks for part-time, which is very important, and full-time workers who pursue a qualifying undergraduate degree at more than 40 institutions. It will also fund advanced degrees paying up to $10,000 each year for a master's program at those schools. So this is a very, very interesting model that we see evolving, because we know that when we look at debt in regards of households throughout the country, throughout the United States, a majority of that is held through student loans. And so student loans is another situation in which has made its way into the political atmosphere that could potentially apply some government dollars. And when it pertains to relief, and corporations see that when it pertains to, I think, engaging and retaining top talent, if you can speak to that debt or being able to relieve that stress while furthering your education, it seems like that is a good way to go. So shout out Target, or Target, as some of my clients say, on seeing this as a really a viable way to attract workers. And hopefully there may be someone here that is probably working part-time at Target, and they watch this video and they say, you know what, I was thinking about going back to school. This may be the trigger that could help make that happen. So shout out Target for really setting up that platform for their employees. All right. Now, this article here is probably so back in the day, Levi's is the thing. And I say back in the day like I'm old. Levi's is still good now. So but recently, what's been interesting, I think the term or the theme that we should place around the term pandemic is innovation. I've heard others say that hard times or a crisis is an incubator for creativity, right? And so the pandemic created this space for creativity, especially around companies on their business model, right? Like how are you going to continue to serve the community in which you're focused? And then, with that focus, how are you going to maintain that client base and have repeat clients based off of the products and the service offerings that you provide? So quickly, I am going to highlight Levi jeans. So Levi ultimately is diversifying their portfolio by buying Beyond Yoga. So those that are familiar with Beyond Yoga, you'll have to, fill me in on the viability of the product, if it's comparable with I forget the popular one. It's gonna come back to me here shortly. But as you can see, blue jeans here, and yoga pants. Like, imagine that. Okay, I can get my jeans and yoga pants in the same location. But Levi's getting into activewear. And so as you can see here, jeans maker Levi will buy the premium activewear and lifestyle brand in a cash deal. Now, typically deals are done by issuing stocks. So interesting that they're going to utilize cash in this situation. And it's expected to close in the fourth quarter. So Beyond Yoga, now this is a female founded, female run. Shout it out. Shout out Beyonce. We run the world. Y'all should be playing that right now. So Beyond Yoga, a female founded and female run Los Angeles based competitor. That's what I was looking for. So if I pronounce this incorrectly, is it Lululemon? Lululemon? I've heard Lululemon. I don't know. Help me out, y'all. Y'all let me know how I need to pronounce it. Send me a voice text. But Lululemon, I'm gonna roll with that. Athletica Incorporated and other makers of leisure and activewear will be a standalone division of the San Francisco-based Levi. So that will be a major competitor. As you can see here, the companies plan to use Levi's brand to significantly expand Beyond Yoga. They say the transaction is expected to add $100 million to Levi's net revenue in a fiscal year 2022. So just a quick, simple reflection of how companies in which we utilize on a day-to-day basis. I don't know who doesn't have a pair of Levi's that we utilize on a day-to-day basis that is reinventing themselves to be a bit more applicable in today's environment. And I think health is starting to play a major role in how we make decisions. So I think that this is a really good, viable move for Levi. So shout out Levi for that. Shout out to Stanford University. I actually had to do a paper on Levi, specifically around his financials. And so got me real proximate to it. All right. And our last, so y'all forgive me, I pump faked. I said, yeah, it may not go as long as last time, and we're already over. And the last one is a bit selfish. So if you've been keeping up with the Olympics, you know that there has been a plethora of track and field events. If you don't know, I am Jamaican by blood. And if you been around a Jamaican during a track and field event, you can see our passion behind the particular sport. But I want to quickly highlight 3 champs here. And so one of the significant races, especially when it pertains to sprints, is the 100-meter dash. With the 100-meter dash, those that have been following the Olympics over the past, we'll just say 8 to 12 years, Jamaica has had a pretty strong presence, especially with Usain Bolt being a face of that. But in this highlight, I want to quickly shout out the women's 100-meter. I want to say team because they got first, second, and third, but it was a full sweep, of course, led by Miss Elaine Thompson in a repeat, running her best. And as you can see, those 3 here, great job, ladies. And so you had Elaine Thompson as well with, let me make sure I get your names, Shelly Ann Fraser Price, and then Sharika Jackson. So great job, ladies. Wanted to shout out Jamaica, Wagwan, you done know. Shout out Trelawney, where my family's from. So hopefully this has been good. Again, quick recap. We'll be doing this on a day-to-day basis. A lot more information to come. We'll have guests to come and speak on different topics. As mentioned before, if you want to stay in contact with all the different material that we have going out, make sure you sign up to for our newsletter. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms. Way more content on the way. And hopefully, again, this has been good for you. Please send any comments or feedback that you have. We're very grateful for those that even supported as early as yesterday and all the other endeavors that we have going on. And so hope all has been well. Y'all know my motto when it's after 5 on Thursday is pretty much the weekend. And so stay safe, have a great weekend, and of course, stay planning.